Well, good evening, my brethren. I'm so happy to be here again, Tennessee. Um, so good to see some old faces, new faces, and whenever God's people get together, it should be a great privilege to each one of us, regardless where we meet. But because there is an urgency for God's people, not only to know the time that we are living, but to discern or to take hold of the truth, the message for that time. Pastor Brown was mentioning about my topic for tonight, and actually, I'm going to be dealing with around this topic for my presentations this weekend over here. But yes, we'll be dealing with the sealing along with the National Sunday Law. Now, I'm going to be making some rhetoric questions. I'm not going to expect you to answer because of the microphone and the live streaming and things like that. But I just want to place in your mind some questions so it can help us to digest, I guess, to process through the Holy Spirit in our mind the very time that we are living. Because while I was in the back, I was listening to Pastor Brown when he said that years ago, in the 90s, and I'm sure many of you were already in present truth or maybe waking up around that time. I remember back in 1993, around there, I was taking part in a meeting that we used to call the Unity Meeting. The historic Seventh-day Adventist, preachers, pastors, getting together a couple of times a year. And it was in one of those meetings that I met my brother Sattler. I don't know if you remember, that meeting was taking place in Colorado. And right there, I remember 1993, we were at least 27, 28 that I recall ministers from different ministries, mainly from the United States of America. And I remember he was across the hall, across the room, and he was looking for this pastor that was putting the earth final warnings, liberty of conscience threatening in major newspaper in America. And when I raised up my hands, I told him, somebody point to him towards me. He was looking at me like, saying, is this the little guy that was putting this thing? And then he, of course, we became attached immediately because he was doing something similar. You see, God works not by coincidence. God is still in control of His work. Yes, and we were sharing this afternoon, why we are not seeing the many people coming to meetings like this, like we used to be having at that time. Obviously, my brethren, it is because a prophecy has been taking place right in front of our eyes. Sister White saw many people that were, like full of emotions. They went out they thought that Jesus was coming back in 1996, and then right after that, the year 2000. But you know what? Jesus is not coming for a remnant that is just being caught up in emotions. Jesus is coming for a people, a remnant people, that will be sealed with the seal of the living God. And again, it is sad to see how many has been abandoned, so to speak, the faith. I mean, getting into winds of doctrines, going back, to the Laodicean, state of Laodicean, and all these things. I don't have, we can go on and on and on. But, my brethren, one thing that I want to leave very clearly here tonight is, if we believed back in the 90s that Jesus was about to come, it should be more urgent today. Today. To not to feel it, not to think about it, but to be convicted. To have that conviction in our heart. Not just because a pastor came here or this brother from New Zealand came here and, no. Because we can take, if there is a people that can take the Bible, we can open the Bible and show to whoever you can think of. In our ministry, I have had the opportunity for these 30-something years to share, the faith that by God's mercy, by God's grace, He allowed me to embrace. As many of you know, I wasn't born in this faith. I'm coming from a very strong Roman Catholic faith. Not that long ago, I was coming from picking up an airplane and going to meetings like this. Oh, I shouldn't move. I'm sorry. I forgot that you got the camera. I'm sorry. This is too sophisticated for me. That's fine. But anyway, as soon as I get inside the airplane, there were two ladies, a mother and a daughter in there. And the daughter, immediately when she saw me, it happened that me and the daughter was having in the same row. Her mother was in the front. And the daughter immediately, when we start talking in there, she said, Mom, this is the preacher. Look at the preacher that is preaching those messages that you watch every Saturday on the television. And of course, she was like a loud voice girl. People were the mother very graciously, she said, "Oh my, so I thought you were bigger." I said, "No." What can I do, right? I usually tell people, don't worry, very soon I'm going to be about 14 or 15 feet tall. So, but what I'm trying to say, my brethren, despite of the unfaithfulness of many who has tasted the beauty of this end-time message, a message that we can open the Bible and prove just from the prophecies that indeed we are living in the very, very last time of this earth history. Okay? As this young girl was saying to her mother, this is the pastor that's preaching those messages. As we went on and for at least a couple of hours inside the airplane, I was trying to share to her that these messages are not just those messages. It's true that it is very unpopular. It is true that just like in the day of Noah, just like in the day of John the Baptist, just like in the day of Jesus, just like in the day of this movement, the Seventh Adventist movement. At the beginning, there were many people. Remember? The the Seventh Adventist movement, there were about 50 to 100,000 people that got together in 1944. How many end up at the end? After the great disappointment? Only about 50 people end up together. The same thing happened with Jesus. See, many try to ridicule us, saying, but you just such a small little people, But you know what? God is raising all these little people all around the world. When I met again Evan Sattler, I didn't know him, obviously. He didn't know me. He was up in New Zealand. I was here in America. And without contacting each other, he was putting the same messages in New Zealand and England around there than the same messages that we have been publishing over here in America. Not only that, later on, I went to some countries in Europe, even in South Korea. And for my surprise, I have seen brethren, people that we didn't even speak the same language. I had to be walking with a translator all the time when I was there in some of those countries. And I get so amazed to see that the same messages that we have been preaching around here, the same work that we are doing, that's the same work that they are doing in those countries. So, brethren, don't let anybody trying to discourage you, trying to make you believe that, just because, just few little people here and there, they are the one who is going to be taking a major role in the proclamation of this message. History tells us, my brethren, that it has always been like this. We are not seeing anything new, okay? So, when we think about the sealing messages, we must come to our mind immediately. What is the message that God has been giving to us? When I say to us, yes, we should not be ashamed. We should not be shy about it. God gave the sealing message to the Seventh-day Adventist church. And what is that message? It's unbelievable. I mean, the only people around the world that God has chosen to place this beautiful truth. Sadly, though, we have been so ashamed many times of this message because I'm talking about, the 3 angels' messages. The sealing message, my brethren, if we want to be sealed with the seal of the living God, we must not only understand the 3 angels' messages, but have put our life by the grace of God in relationship with those messages. The first angel message, when you look at it, it will should prepare to us to be seeking people of the same experience. People that will be fearing God, giving glory to Him. And each one of those, I call it imperative, because God doesn't give us multiple choice. He said, fear God, give Him glory. It's imperative, isn't it? Give Him glory. Because what? The hour of the judgment has come. The thing is, my friend, that because it's such a unique experience that God has been calling us, that the devil has been putting in our mind that we don't want to be so unique. We want to be like the rest of the world. One of the problems, I hope that you've been following us in our Gospel Herald. One of the problems that we are facing, I thought I put it over here one. Well, tomorrow I can show you. One of the problems that we are facing is that we want to be identified more with the world than with the message that Jesus on His mercy has been giving to us. That's why we have to try to awake our brethren. I call trying to awake the elect, our Seventh Adventist brethren. We've been putting this gospel, eternal gospel out, and by God's grace, we have been sending just in North America to more than 120,000 from the GC, from the General Conference to people, brethren at large. But, it is so sad that we have to put out, again, trying to wake up our brethren to see that it is more relevant today. If it was relevant, if it was important back in the 90s, if it was important back in the 1844, being involved into these messages, how much more today? That it is like if I were to ask you, when was more important for Noah to be given the message that the flood was coming? At the beginning of 120,000, 120 years, or at the 119 years, 11 months, and maybe 29 days? I mean, right? But exactly, my brethren, we have been more willing to identify ourselves with the world, make plan with what the Bible described, the men of sin, shaking hands, planning meetings, going on with this ecumenical agenda. In just a few days, I'm sure that you already heard, Francis is calling for this huge meeting for next year. Brethren, those things should be enough for us to understand that we are running out of time. We as individuals, we have been told. I was talking to this young man that was going to be preaching in another camp meeting this weekend. And this young man has been following our ministry for quite some time. And he was asking me, he says, I know that I heard one time that you were reading in another camp meeting that he saw me. He said that Sister White said that those who don't have a clear understanding of what the Antichrist is, for sure will end up in the side of the Antichrist. How many of you have been reading that? I'll give you the reference. I got it right here. It's, you go to your 7A Bible commentary, where she's commenting. I can carry all those books, and I hate to be reading from my phone. I'm an old-fashioned guy. I got some books. But if you go to where she's commenting 1 John chapter 2, verse 18, 1 John chapter 2, verse 18, you will see that she says right there, I'm paraphrasing it, of course, with my Spanglish. But she says, you can read it. She said something like this. She said, those who fail to have a clear understanding on who the Antichrist is, for sure. She doesn't say maybe. She doesn't say, if she said for sure will end up in the side of the Antichrist. So, my friend, these three angels' messages are so important for us to understand it. Not only to understand it, but again, trying to align our life according to what we profess. Yes, my brother. Yeah. I'm sorry. 949. Okay, she's commenting 1 John chapter 2, verse 18. Page 5. Yeah, volume 7, page 949. Thank you. All right. All right. If you can forward it to my phone so I can have it like a text or something. All right. I'm not so computer like you are. But anyway, my brethren, the three angels' messages involve the big issue, the greatest issue that we have in front of us. And God, on His mercy, has given us, as Pastor Brown has a little sign over there, that we should be involved into not a warn message, but into a warning message. It's a warning to each one of us. What God is saying is, if you don't fear His name, which means walk on all His ways, obey all His commandments, what God is saying is, if you don't worship me in spirit and in truth, if you are not getting into this specifically, when she talked about the sealing message, talk about the third message in early writings, page 118, it's a message that is dividing the whole humanity. The whole humanity. So my brethren, as we get closer and see the signs that we see, my brethren, every time I find people all over where I go, South America, Central America, on the Caribbean, people that come to me. I was talking to Brother Ben, Pastor Brown, this afternoon. I was not alone. I go preaching by Nebraska, and there was a Orthodox priest in there in my meeting that came in, and the reason that he came in is he just said, I have heard your messages, and you have been preaching something that we used to believe up to about 100 years ago. And I said, well, what was that? He says, we understood, we had a clear understanding as a denomination that the papacy was the system of the Antichrist. And right there, he was talking in front of many other brethren in there. Brethren, and let me tell you this, because people misunderstand me sometimes and say, well, maybe, and there's a priest trying to shut us off, some 7 or 8 Catholic dioceses now from the television. And the reason that they're saying is because I'm trying to cause division among, their beloved mother or church. See, I'm not trying to cause division to nobody. But God has been calling us, though, not only to present the true Christ, the true message for this time, but also God, by His mercy, is giving us a clear messages that we must expose. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Paul says there is sometimes a misunderstanding of that text. Because I'm trying to, since I was thinking and praying this morning and last night, I said, help me, oh Lord, to make my presentations in such a way that nobody will try to misunderstand me, because people think that I have some type of vendetta, I guess you call it, some kind of so much opposition against the Catholic Church or the papacy. No, I have because I love them, because I know what it is to be in such a deception. I still got most of my family in there. That's the reason that I try to awaken. That I know what it is to be in such a darkness place, thinking that I was going to be a minister for God by being a priest, when indeed the Bible says that I ought to be part of the Antichrist system. So my brother, who is the one that have more love? The one that gives the warning message, or the people that are just giving a warm message to keep people sleeping? You see what I'm saying? So my brethren, we need to understand that for this time, God has been giving this. In the 2 Thessalonians, chapter 2, verse 8, this one of the least one of the verses that is least understood, people don't understand it, is this verse over here, 2 Thessalonians 2:8. Paul was talking about that Jesus would not come to this earth until the man of sin would be revealed. Another word for revealed, especially in the Greek language was written this text, it would be exposed openly. And Paul was saying is that Jesus would not come until this system would be exposed, would be revealed. Why? Because God on His mercy knew that where the majority of His children would have been caught up in this end time in the so-called Christianity, would have been in that system. So God on His love has been raising people like you and me to bring this message out to them, to awaken the people. Say, no. Right now, what Francis is doing is trying to fulfill what is described on Revelation 17. As a matter of fact, you look at some of the languages that he was using a few days ago for this meeting, inviting the politicians, the religious. It's exactly the same language that is found in Revelation 18 and 17. I say, amazing. It is like God using, you remember the donkey that talked to a prophet? I said, man, this man doesn't realize that he's fulfilling the prophecy in front of us. And we Adventists has been so, how shall I say, indifference. Trying to, again, if it will be a time where we should be taking heat. This afternoon, when we were going to grab something to eat, Pastor Brown showed me on the phone. She said, look, the most intensive hurricane ever registered is going through the Caribbean. Through the Atlantic. I said, I thought it was 2 weeks ago. Remember Dorian? They were saying that the most intensive hurricane ever registered was Hurricane Dorian. Which one, by the way, tomorrow I'll tell you a miracle on that. Because if you were following that hurricane 2 weeks ago, it was coming straight to West Palm Beach. Straight. Category 5. But again, God is merciful. God is merciful. So, my brethren, there is a specific message. The question that we can ask tonight is, why then, if this message of the sealing started with a message, with the preaching of the presentation, the understanding of the three angels' messages, why we're still here on this earth? But I think that is a question that we all should be thinking about it. Because for over 170 years, we have been involved into this. I'm talking about Seventh-day Adventists. Brethren, what happened is, if we go back into our history, we see that right at the time when God was about to bring the biggest revival and reformation, the devil divert us. Talking about the 1886, 1888. You know that, right? Okay. When we were about, and I remember talking to white-haired guys like a Ron Spear, Colin Standish, Ralph Larson, and some other in the 90s. Maybe the last president, the General Conference president, that we had a real president, a spiritual man, was a man by the name of Pereezr. That's the last one, I believe. That's what my friend used to tell me. Those white-haired pastors. God, the devil saw, because the devil studied all these things. He's the greatest psychologist. He studied each one of us. He studied our weakness. He studied our strong points. And that's the reason that Well, if he sees that your weak point is the appetite, you better be sure he's going to be tempting you to eat what you should not be eating. If your big weakness is that you just want to be, be accepted by the rest of the world, he will try to then to divert you just to preach messages, like Pastor Brown says, pleasant message instead of present truth messages. So the devil studied. So what did he do when he saw this young man coming up, this pastor? He set up in the mind of some big people in the high level, try to mingle themselves, get caught up with evangelicals in one of the biggest fiasco, the 1956 and 1956 and 1957. So, brethren, there should be a biggest revival coming in. But instead of that revival coming out in the 70s, we were already more entertained to be like the rest of the evangelicals than being the unique people that God called us to do. And we came up in the 90s. I told my brethren, I said, wow, this is going to be big. As a matter of fact, when I got this message, when I got involved in this message, I said, this is going to be the biggest revival in the whole world. I was so naive. Because then what happened? Y2K came, nothing came in, and people were back again. So many people even went back to the world. Brethren, and now you and me are coming. We're still here. So what do we have to do? Remember that we understand that the sealing got to do is a settlement in the truth, isn't it? I mean, of course, the Sabbath is going to be the sign, the external sign. Well, instead of going to church on Sunday, we come on Saturday. Instead of paying attention to Francis and all those people, and another big thing that is happening now. See, unfortunately, our people are so asleep. From the general conference to us, we should be sounding the alarm. Not that long ago, about a year ago, I heard about this little girl from Australia. I think it's a 15 or 16 years old girl. Starting promoting what they call taking care of the common home, like Francis call it, the Mother Earth. And then more little kids here in America, in Europe, and even in Mexico and South America said, wait a minute, don't tell me this is something doesn't smell so good in here. How can all these little kids, teenagers, putting together a worldwide movement? It can be. I talked to one of a white hair man, have more experience than me. And I told this man, I says, you know what? For sure, very soon, we're going to discover that the Catholic Church is behind that. Have you heard the latest? How the little girl, the main leader on that, went to receive the blessing? You heard in the news? From Francis. The Catholic Church has been behind that. So, brethren, everything that is taking place right now, that all those big meetings that he's trying to do, the so-called from Laudato Si. You know what the Laudato Si is, right? The encyclical that Francis put out. When I read that, brethren, a couple of years ago, I said, man, the devil is so astute. So if there is a time in the history of our movement that we must be grounded on the truth, it's the time that you and me are living, my brethren. Forget about the 1990, forget about the 1956, 57. Jesus wants to work with us today. And if it was important for us to be preparing ourselves in those past years, it's more important today. So we might ask, I usually say that we are, see, when we look at the Revelation 6, let me go. Revelation chapter 6. We are right now into what I call a little parenthesis between the end of the sixth seal, and tomorrow, of course, I'll be expanding on this, and the seventh seal. And again, we can see God's mercy on this too. Jesus knew all this apostasy. Jesus knew all the spiritual indifference, apathy that we're going to be. You know, he saw his people being entertained, more entertained into fable instead of "Thus say the Lord." When we read Revelation 6, verse 12, unfortunately, I have heard people being caught up into what is called futurism or something in the past, preterism. No, we must be historic Adventists, present truth. Look at this. Revelation 6, it says, "And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal." John was shown. Jesus, you know, in the vision, it was seen. He said, "I saw when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake." What else? "And the sun became" what? "Black as sackcloth of hair. And the moon became as blood." And verse 13, it describes, Revelation 6, "The stars of heaven fell onto the earth, even as fig tree cast her untimely figs when she's shaking of a mighty wind." See, John was shown this, and my brethren, just because this is happening at the sixth seal, it says right there, right? Sixth seal. Then it describes in the following verses the second coming of Christ. Verse 14, 15, 16, and 17. I hope that all of you are very well acquainted with those verses. So John, on his writing, he jumped from the sixth seal, before the sixth seal ended, to the second coming of Christ. And then in chapter 7, he started, chapter 7 says, "And after these things, I saw four angels standing on the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw," verse 2, chapter 7, "and I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the four angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, Hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their forehead." Okay, so this over here we find what I call a little parenthesis between the verses 13, okay, or from the verses 14 through 17 up to the seventh seal. That's what I'm going to be dealing tomorrow, okay? Because many people being caught up, they get caught up into some winds of doctrine, saying that the fulfillment of verse 12 and 13 has not taken place yet. I was preaching not that long ago in a camp meeting here in North America, just a few weeks ago. And more than half of the brethren attending, they didn't have a clear understanding on these verses. And I believe, brethren, that one of the reasons that we have lost our identity is because we are not being paying attention. We are not being paying attention to the event. Not the way, especially the book of Revelation, is written in such a way, not in chronological order, but the events are going to be happening in chronological order. Okay? Do you understand that? The book of, especially the book of Revelation, was not written chronologically, but the event. When you find the event, you can put them right one after another. I'm not the one who said that. Look at this. So, in order for us to understand, because we have to be clear, the messages that they will seal the people for this end time, to prepare them not to receive the mark of the beast. That's another thing too. You go out and you will see that 99.999% don't have a clue what the mark of the beast is. The Antichrist again, even Adventists don't have a clue. They don't have a clue. Again, into that meeting that I'm talking about, I asked specifically, because it was in a different setting, some of the brethren, some of them that were saying that the Antichrist is Satan. Yes, we can say that the main guy, the main enemy of Christ is Satan, obviously. But Satan always has been working through human institutions, organizations, the same way that Jesus has been trying to work with human instrumentalities. It's sad to see the time they were living. Many people try to convince you, and they misuse. They misuse what Jesus said to the disciple. Jesus, let me quote it to you, just in case tonight, when you leave this room, I don't want anybody to be tempted to think, you say, Pastor Pereezr said that we can know all the events, in the chronological order. I thought, if that means that we can know the time that we're living. If I ask you, can we know the time specifically that we're living? Jesus, many misuse this verse. I'm going to read to you. Then I'll give you another verse. The book of Acts, chapter 1. Book of Acts, chapter 1. There was a question that was placed by the disciple to Jesus. And that question is found on the book of Acts, chapter 7, chapter 1, Acts chapter 1, verse 7. Okay? Look what it is. Well, you can go and ask, verse 6, so we can get the context, okay? It says, verse 6, chapter 1 of Acts. It says, when they therefore were come together, they asked of him, saying, Lord, wilt thou at this time restore again the kingdom to Israel? Remember the answer I just gave? Verse 7. And he said unto them, it is not for you to know the times of the seasons, which the Father hath put in his own power. But ye, verse 8, but ye shall receive power after that the Holy Ghost is come upon you, and ye shall be witnesses unto me both in Jerusalem, and all Judea, and Samaria, and unto the uttermost part of the earth. Okay, again, let's go back verse 7 is being used or misused. Even the so-called minister of the gospel has been trying to ridicule, saying, as a matter of fact, I got something in my briefcase, and a statement a few years ago by the director of the Department of Communications from the General Conference, saying to one of the reporters that this message that we were putting on the USA Today, LA Times, New York Times, about the Sunday law coming of the Sunday law, which will be the mark of the beast. He said to this reporter that was an Pereezr invention. No, this Pereezr has been inventing these messages. I said, I've been inventing this? Don't we as a Seventh Adventist has been, we were called actually to Testimony Volume 9, page 18 and 19, she said that the reason that God called the Seventh Adventist was to give this warning message to the world. It was not just Pereezr or Pastor Brown. He said that everybody should be, all Adventists should be involved in this. So now we know why we're still here and not at home, right? So many will misuse about this. But wait a minute, Jesus on his mercy. See, the disciples were kind of confounded. They were thinking about what they were asking is, are you going to are you going to free us from the Romans now? Are you going to implement your earthly kingdom now? They didn't have a clear understanding, my brother. And I wonder if we, as those disciples back then, don't have a clear understanding yet. And the very specific time that you and me are living. We see all this about the Pope, that all the little kids coming for years, for about 8 or 10 years. And I'm sure Brother Evan Sattler can speak to you about this too. You go to some part of Europe, Sunday is like a cemetery. In Berlin, I go there once every 3 years or so to come meeting. You go through Berlin on Sunday, it's all dead. Why? Because the Parliament, the European Parliament, along with the clergy, has been pushing for Sunday to be the day of the family. Something good, isn't it? Something very good, the day of the family. Now we need to enforce a day of rest, Sunday, so that the Mother Earth can rest from all the fuel and all these things. Brethren, all those things is what I call Trojan's horses. Deceptions, smoke screens. And we are so naive, Adventists, that we cannot see how Satan is working in front of us. No, Jesus obviously had to tell them, don't think that I'm going to bring my kingdom now. That's not up to you to understand. Later on, look, a few years later, Paul, writing to his letter, look what it says. There's no contradiction in the Bible. Before I conclude tonight, I want to read this verse and something over here from the Spirit of Prophecy, because, brethren, we must understand the time that we're living. We must understand what consists on the 3 years messages. We must understand the events that are trespassing to us. And we must see, my brethren, as Pastor Brown says at the beginning when he was about to introduce me, that we are in the sealing time. Many will miss eternity, salvation, because instead of being ready to receive the seal of the living God, they are preparing themselves now to receive the mark of the beast. Remember, if we don't have a clear understanding on these issues, For sure, she said, we are going to end up in the side of the Antichrist. Look what Paul says. I'm sure very familiar. I usually think about, I said, people that come to meetings like this, it's like a preaching to the choir. I know that. Most of the people that don't come to meetings like this, they should be the one that, to hear this. But look at this, it says, Romans chapter 13, verse 11. It says, and that knowing the time, that now it is high time to wake out of sleep. Knowing what? Paul says, knowing the time. So if Paul says back in almost 1900 years ago, can you imagine what he would have said today? He was talking obviously in the context of the prophetic time when people like you and me would be seeing the things that we're seeing today. Knowing the time. Do we know the time? Can we open up the Bible and tell a Catholic priest, evangelical pastor, or a layman, show to them in the Bible where we are in history? What else Paul says? For now is our salvation nearer than when we believe. The night is far. Wow, verse 12. The night is far spent. The day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness. Brethren, one of the work of darkness is not to walk in the light of the Ten Commandments. The whole world is in dark because they don't understand the Ten Commandments. The whole world is in darkness because they don't see the prophecy coming upon us. With all the respect, I want to say this. The majority of even our Seventh-day Adventist brethren are in darkness because they don't understand the time that we're living. Let me close with this quote. And tomorrow we're going to pick up, I believe it's at 9:30, my next presentation. Let me read just a little paragraph. And with this, we'll let you go. Look at this. For those of you try to ridicule, because I hear pastor, there was a pastor in Miami, friend of mine, he listened to my radio programs and talk about Adventists. It's sad. He said, you just have something, I think you've just been going out of your mind. He has been saying that for about 30 years with me. I said, well, I'm still crazy then. Yes, I'm crazy for the Word of God. I'm crazy for what? Brother, I don't know about you, but every time I hear all these things happening, I say, praise God. I mean, praise the Lord. What the Pope is saying, what they're trying to do, I say, praise God. Don't we want to go home, brother? I mean, the only thing that I feel sad about is because there's still so many people that we need to reach. That's the only thing. But, more and more calamities are coming. More and more destructions are coming. More apostasy are coming. More winds of doctrines are going to be blowing. Unfortunately. All those things. Jesus said, when you see all these things, put your heads up. Wake up. The night is at hand. It's far spent. The night is far spent. Look what he's saying here. Let me read just the first paragraph, and I promise I close this thing. Okay? The title was Coming Events Clearly Revealed. Maranatha. Maranatha. June 1st. God says, who says? Pay attention because I do it on purpose. I don't say Ellen G. White says, God says. Because that's another wind of doctrine. I don't know over here, Chattanooga, around this place, Pastor Brown. But this wind of doctrine about that, no. I read in the internet that she's not inspired. I read you also read on the internet that how to prepare a bomb and kill yourself. Oh, why you believe everything in the internet? You know what I'm talking about? A lot of good people say, "Oh no, I don't believe that anymore because I read on the internet." You know how many garbage you read in the internet? So God said through His prophet, God says that the coming events are clearly revealed. And was connecting Amos 3:7. The Lord God does nothing without giving to His servants, the prophets, knowledge of His plans. Nothing. God will not allow the enemy to bring anything that He will not reveal to us. That's another thing that's blowing around. Oh, when the Pope came here in 2015, oh, listen to it. I mean, people are so naive. There was some minister, even so-called President Truth, said there was a secret meeting that the Pope and some people already established a national Sunday law quietly. If it was so secretly, how do you know? Just to sell your DVD? You know what I mean, brethren? I'm upset with those people. No. Clearly revealed. I know my time is up. But listen. The event connected with the clause of probation and the work of preparation for the time of trouble are clearly presented. What is that? Clearly presented. She doesn't say that, you have to go to Andrews, you have to go to Loma. No. Anybody can understand it. But multitudes have no more understanding of this important truth than if they had never been revealed. And read it, because tomorrow we're going to be expanding on this. My brethren, it is my prayer tonight, not only for us over here in Tennessee, tonight in this camp meeting, but for those who have been watching these presentations, that we can not only understand, yes, we must understand the time that we're living. We must understand the position that God wants us to take. There's only two sides that are being developed, two groups being developed. The obedience and the disobedience. Those who be sanctified by the truth and those who will be following tradition. And brethren, yes, the seal of the living God will be only placed for those who are going to be settling in the truth. Settling in the truth. May God help us to be part of that remnant. It's a remnant group of people, men and women from all walks of life, that will be ready to receive the seal of the living God. God bless you.